Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to some more Path of Exile content. So in this video, what we're going to do and focus in on are these Conquerors spawning in. But I also want to first off give you guys some more tips and tricks just about Path of Exile in general and kind of where I've gone with this build. So keep in mind, everything that I'm mentioning is optional depending on how much currency you have and how much stuff you have. This could all factor in, or if it's just a playstyle that you don't like, feel free not to run any of these skills because I'm going to be kind of modifying the build up just for the sake of modifying it. It's totally fine, but I just want to give you guys a variety of different things that you can implement into your playstyle. So the first thing that I will recommend most of you guys to get, and it's actually really nice, so it's called Frost Shield. So what this skill does is if I activate it, it's going to create a shield around us. It will drain our shield, but it's always going to give us a bigger form of damage reduction in it. So if I mouse over it, it tells me what it does. And you don't have to have this linked in here. It's just because this is the only area that I had an extra socket. But basically what it comes down to is you throw it down. It's going to last 10 seconds. It's going to make it so 20% of the damage dealt from the things that are inside of your shield, you're going to get a 20% damage reduction. But there's a 60% damage reduction from you or your allies outside of the area. So ideally what you do is you cast it and then you sit in here and then you'll be attacking things, you know, kind of farther away just in case you do get hit. You don't really want to be in melee range because you kind of want your golems to absorb most of the damage. That's why I went Elementalist. I mentioned before Occultist was another strong pick like really earlier on in the video, but the thing is that Elementalist is definitely going to be way stronger in terms of survivability, especially if you get hit with the elemental damage. It's just really helpful for that. So Frost Shield is great for that. Now this can't absorb all the damage. It's 60% of the damage that it has for the HP, and it has a certain amount of stages. It builds up 4 stages, and it's going to have, right now this is a level 16 one, it has 690 stages. Now I also want to kind of introduce you guys to another form of a gem. These are called alternate quality gems. So this is called a phantasmal Frost Shield. So the regular Frost Shield, this is basically what it does, and if I put quality into it, you'll see on the second line of the text it says increased effect of cold ailments. While the Phantasmal Frost Shield, when I have quality, it doesn't give me that. It gives me Frost Shield regenerates 0.2% of its life per second. Does it really matter? Pretty much no, not really. But I just want to show you guys the difference. Don't worry about getting any of these like alternate quality gems. 1, they're very expensive. 2, if you do want to farm them, well, they can be expensive. It depends on which one you get. Like the Phantasmal Frost Shield's not really worth anything. I plan to just like vendor it off. There is one that does give you a better benefit, which it absorbs like up to 5% more at max quality, instead of like 60 that will all and the 20 it'll be plus 5%. So that one would help, but is it worth it? If you have a lot of money, sure, by all means go for it. But in addition to actually blocking damage, this will actually increase your spell critical strike chance per stage, and remember it gains 4 stages. And since this staff gives us plus 3 to all of our cold spell gems, this is going to make it go even further. Once it's level 23, it will start absorbing like I believe over 1,000 per stage, so it's another like 4,000 damage that we can potentially mitigate. Granted, it has to be like a hit, and there are certain things that are a degen that might not count as a hit, but it's just going to increase your survivability a lot if you want to. Again, this is just another optional thing that you can do for your character, but you are kind of more locked to playing inside of this if you want the benefit of it. You can walk outside of it. It's not like it locks you into that area, but that would be one way that you can actually add survivability to your build. In addition to that, you could actually throw on Flesh and Stone. This is going to reserve mana, so I would have to, let's say, drop, okay, I'm going to let's say I want to drop Herald of Ice for this, because it's going to significantly help our survivability. If I had the right gem socket, I could throw this in and not take out this increased duration, but for the sake of this, I'm just going to go show you guys, because I'm trying to show you guys just, again, more stuff in this game, as we will be defeating bosses in this video. And in the video, I'm not even going to be using Frost Shield. I'm not going to be using Flesh and Stone. The reason why I'm trying to show you guys more things is because I want you guys to have more tools. So this over here is called Flesh and Stone. Now this is a different one. It does also reserve mana, and I can't use this skill because it reserves 35, and the Herald of Ice, because that would be over. Now there are ways to deal with the mana reserve, which you can get things on the tree if you want to, and there's also a special gem called Enlighten, but it's a very, very expensive gem, but you can also run that to reduce the cost of the mana reservation. But what Flesh and Stone does, it gives us Blood and Sand stance, or Stone and, what is it called? Stone and Flesh stance. Okay. Oh, it's a Blood stance. Okay. So yeah, Sand stance is the one that you want to be in. Blood stance, it's going to make it so nearby enemies are maimed and take increased physical damage. We don't do physical damage, so that doesn't really help us. But specifically, you'll see this little like circle around us. That's like in a like a gold or a yellow. Enemies that are tagged by that, it's going to make them blind. Blind makes them less accurate, which is going to be them technically having a much smaller chance to hit. I believe blind, unless it's been changed, is a 50% chance for them to just not hit. Yeah, it's a 50% for their chance to hit. So it's going to increase your survivability by huge amounts. So that is something that you can factor in as well. And in fact, I think Cassia still has my amulet over here, and I want to go over to Cassie, and I'll show you guys how to anoint an amulet. But that's another thing that you guys can actually add to your build if you want to. Now I'm going to show you guys how to also anoint a passive on your tree. In addition to getting extra damage via your passives, I mentioned before to get like these things that would be called talismans that usually will have like a enchantment on them. Now keep in mind, you don't have to get this enchantment. Before we had the additional curse and I was casting the sniper's mark. If you want to do that, by all means do it. I'm literally just swapping up the build to show you guys more things. But with this over here, it granted us crystal skin. I wanted this amulet because I had a lot of chaos resistance. We're going to be fighting some of the Conquerors very soon. You'll see I didn't have really good chaos res, and what happened was I got melted by the boss. And it's okay. Sometimes on the bosses, on the Conquerors, some people can accept that they can die, you know, once or twice. They'll just kill it and they'll move on because maybe it's a mechanic that it will eventually get like extra cold resist or extra, you know, physical damage reduction, and that's totally fine. But I wanted to eventually, you know, fix things as I got more currency, which is totally a thing in PoE. Like sometimes you just can't afford certain things. But this one, I liked it, but it has crystal skin. I don't want crystal skin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy the oils, or if you guys wanted to farm them, you can also farm them by doing the mechanic of blight. That's like the little tower defense, which we showed off a long time ago. But you can go over to Act 10, or you can access it via your hideout. Just go to Oriath. You'll see this lady called Sister Cassia. You just talk to her and you go to Anoint Items, or if you want to, you can click on her, you can send her to your hideout and you can do it there. But all we got to do is put in the amulet and the appropriate oils for whatever passive we want. Now there are some passives that don't actually appear on the passive skill tree. The one that I want right now is Disciple of the Unyielding. It's going to grant us an endurance charge, which will grant us a form of physical damage reduction, as well as getting us increased damage per endurance charge. It's going to give us +1 to minimum endurance charges, meaning we will always have 1 endurance charge, with the exception of some other like modifiers. But for the most part, we're almost always going to have that +1. And so I want this. So how do I get this? I hold Alt on my keyboard, and you'll see the colors are a purple, a red, and like almost like a rainbow. It's called opalescence. But different ones will use different oils. Now you can farm these oils and do the mechanic if you want to, but realistically getting the right oils sometimes can take a very long time, so I just like to purchase them via the PoE trade websites. I've already purchased them ahead of time, but on average these are relatively cheap. This one was like 6 chaos, and these ones were like 1 or 2 a piece. So these are relatively cheap oils. There are oils that are very expensive, and some of them will not even appear on the tree. If you want to look up passives that you can anoint via oils, you can just go to like wiki and type in like anointed passives, and you'll be able to see that as well. Now you cannot get the larger ones over here, like these ones. You cannot get these, like the super big ones. You'll be able to get any of these. If I mouse over it, you'll see there's no like oils they're showing. So any of these ones, it will require whatever the ones, and they have to be in that order. The gold ones are very expensive, so unless you're super rich, I would not recommend getting the gold ones, because you can probably get much better value elsewhere. But yeah, so I'm going to show you guys how to anoint this, because I want this one right now, and I will show you how to do it.
Hello.
So we'll just go to annoying items. We put in our amulet and in the correct order of, well, okay, this is the thing with oils. Normally you'd see this and you'd be like purple, red, and then like rainbow, but it's called violet, crimson, and opalescence. The best way to see the colors and what they're called is just go to like the wiki and just type in like Path of Exile oils, and you'll see the names of each one, and you can check out via the trade websites how much each one is going for. Because some of them are super cheap, some of them are super expensive. So we just put them all in this order. Now this only works with amulets with one exception. You can put it on boots and you can put it on other things. It's a more advanced mechanic that requires a very specific item. You can't just like do it on every single piece of your gear. That would actually be pretty cool and probably pretty OP, but nonetheless, it's going to remove this one though. So we're going to anoint it, and it's going to say it's going to replace the current enchantment. I'm going to say, yeah, no problem. And now I'm going to have +1 minimum endurance charges. And what does an endurance charge do? Well, I'll go into my hideout, and then you guys will be able to see it. So you see this little like red orb around us, and that's going to give us additional physical damage reduction and elemental resistances, but I'm only using it for the phys damage reduction, plus it's going to give us 8% increased damage per endurance charge, and we also have an 8% chance to gain an endurance charge on kill. It's just so I can add more physical damage reduction, because that's really the thing that is going to mainly be killing us as an elementalist. Also think about getting more chaos res. In the gameplay in the video, you will see me actually die one time on one of the bosses. It's the one that hits for chaos damage, and I didn't have enough chaos resistance. Now I've got all of my chaos resistance maxed out, so I'm a-okay on that. So that's pretty much going to be it for like what I wanted to show you guys. However, if you guys do want to increase your damage, you can run a Vaal Righteous Fire. So I'm just going to throw this in here over a Frost Shield just to show you guys a variety, and I'm going to go put my increased damage gem over here. So we'll throw in the Herald of Ice, and we will go just into an area, because this is a Vaal skill. Like I was using before, the Vaal Summon Skeletons. That one, I'm just going to go just kill some stuff so I can build up the charges for it. But the Vaal Summon Skeletons is totally fine if you want to keep that one. I think it's one of the best ones for like the sake of just like ease. But we'll go ahead and just kill some enemies, and we'll build up the charge for Vaal Righteous Fire. But there is a change with this since I had last played with it, and it actually will do damage to you more than it normally does. So now what it does is it sacrifices 60% of our total energy shield and life. If we activate it, bam, we lose a lot of life. But what do we get in return? We get 18% more spell damage. So basically what you usually want to use this for are bosses. So you build it up by just killing the enemies, you get to the boss, you pop this, and you try to eliminate the boss as quickly as possible. Now, in the gameplay, I'm not even using it, and you guys can see I can still do the bosses totally fine. So again, all these little steps that I'm mentioning are completely optional. But I personally would say I would highly recommend you guys to use Frost Shield. It is one of the best things, and going forward, for most of my builds, I'm going to be using it. It is a fantastic thing. You can see when we're in it, it actually changes the little shield that we have. And this doesn't last forever, keep that in mind. But it also does drain your shield, but it always gives you more of a benefit, especially since it also gives you extra damage as well. It doesn't really hurt you to throw it in your build, for the most part, unless you're doing something like really specific that requires you to like move. But yeah, that's going to be pretty much other things that I would say that are different in the build that I wanted to mention. I haven't really changed my build up since the last time I showed you guys. However, in the gameplay you're going to be seeing, I'm going to be using gear that's much worse than this, that doesn't have the chaos res. And now we're basically good to go in terms of our like our build's really becoming a lot more powerful. In terms of our survivability and also in our damage department. But I'll mention anything else as we need to, but let's go ahead and get some gameplay in now of these bosses. And in order to spawn these bosses, what you're going to do is you just keep on doing maps in certain areas. You'll see that some of them will be marked. Keep on doing the maps. Like you see how there's a little like green haze in this one. There's lightning over here. There could be other little like, you know, VFX in these areas, and you just want to keep on running the maps and make sure when you put in the map device, it does not say that like the map is too low for this like Conqueror to spawn in. And you keep on doing these maps. Eventually Kyrek will have an exclamation mark, and you go talk to him, and he's going to let you go in, and you'll talk to Zon. I'll explain it once I show off the gameplay. But that's basically how you spawn these Conquerors. You're going to get stones, and this is how you increase the difficulty of the game, and you're going to be accessing even more stronger bosses later down the line. But let's go ahead and roll the gameplay. Alright, so Kyrek finally has the exclamation above his head. We'll talk to him. He's going to, after doing these maps a few times, like in this quadrant, that's how you get him to have the exclamation mark. Then you go talk to Zana, and then you travel to whatever citadel. It might not be this one, but it'll be whatever one, and it'll tell you what the map is. It's a relatively low map. This one will be relatively easy, but these will get harder as we progress. And on top of that, there are going to be these things on the ground. You might have already noticed it. Either like a blue square, a red square, or like a snake will come out of the ground. And basically you just do the map and you kill the boss, and I'll cut to the part where once we get to the boss, because he will be different. Like, well, you get to the normal boss, you kill him, and then there's a portal that opens up that fights a like special boss. But yeah, you just do the map like you normally would. Okay, so we just killed the boss, and a new portal will open up. You can make another portal if you want to, so you can just go right back here in case you die. So this boss mechanic, he makes these squares bright, like blue/white. During that, you don't want to be on top of those. It's very, very easy to see though. Just stand kind of far away from him, especially if you're like using a ranged build. It makes things much easier. At least in my opinion. The reason why is I just don't want to get hit by his slam. That does damage. But you want to make sure you can kind of see him though.
Look at this guy.
Okay. And now we'll get our first watch stone. So what the watch stone does is we actually take the stone, so there'll be different colored ones. There's 4 different colors, but technically there's a lot more different watch stones which you can get in the game. But you see how these maps over here, they're all white? If I put this in, it's going to convert them to yellow. And some maps will be the same, like this is pen, and then this one over here is still pen. But there might be new maps, like Desert Spring over here. It wasn't even there. It's a different map. So certain maps will only appear once you get a certain tier, but your goal is to just now keep on doing maps, and they'll start dropping higher tiers, and also you'll make the areas like a little bit more difficult. That's basically what they do. And if you see these items, they're influenced with these little like icons, and what that means is they're influenced and they can have like certain roles that would not be able to roll, and we'll just identify them so you guys can see it. And they also look cool for a skin. I think they do look very awesome. But that's the mechanic of the Conquerors. And basically in order to, again, spawn them in, all you do is keep on doing the same maps in that like little quadrant. You'll see, let's see if I have one. Like basically it'll be a little lightning around this little area, and you'll know that's when you got to keep on doing more of them. But yeah, that's how you spawn in the Conquerors, and that's like what the mechanic is. And there's several different bosses, and they have different mechanics. That guy's just the squares. He's probably one of the easier ones, unless you play melee, but that's that one. Alright, so we're going to be doing another boss over here, and I'll show you the mechanic. His name's Drox. Now some of these like banners, if you need flasks, what you can do is go over to the sides, and there'll be a bunch of monsters that spawn, and you can also destroy these if you want to. These little like flag banners. And you'll see that if you do need flash chargers, there will be enemies that kind of come out of all of the like 4 sides, but you can still damage him, I believe, during this. It's just that you don't get maybe as much. But we can go summon our skeletons and just get them down. Pop our flasks. He's not really doing too much anyways right now. Oops, I need this to be red under him. One thing you do want to watch out for is those.
Look at this guy.
I kind of kill him fast, but he did use his fist once. You'll see it kind of pop up. As soon as you see it, you can either pop your flasks to kind of mitigate some of the damage if you're running the correct flask, or like evade, dodge, you know, those kinds of things. But just dashing out of the way is probably going to be much easier as soon as you see it, because you might not have your flash charges because, of course, the newest change. But of course, you get another watchstone, throw it in wherever that you're doing your maps, and feel free to move these around. You don't always have to keep them in the same spot. It just kind of depends. Like for example, if I'm doing this map over here, we can check out what we have that's adjacent to it and know that what we've done before, in terms of like is this one linked over here. You can see that this one is pathed over here. You'll see sometimes if you go up, that map might like disappear completely because it's too low of a tier, and that will be something you may notice in the game when you go into an area. It'll say like this Watchstone's level is too low to attract the Conqueror. That is something that is quite important. See this thing, and that has to do with basically putting in those little stones, and that's the mechanic with that boss. All right, another one of these Conquerors is going to be in this video, so let's go ahead and defeat another Conqueror. And this time I'm going to be using Vaal Summon Skeletons. You don't need it specific for this one, but I'm just going to show you guys the new skill, as I just really like the Skeleton Vaal skill. It's not required at all. So her mechanic is that she'll go away, you'll see it. I'm just going to summon my Skeletons so you guys can see him. Summons a bunch of Skeletons, well, on her final form. So eventually she'll move out of the way. Try to move the whole time, just like any other boss fight. But once she gets low enough, she'll do that. She'll like go in like a straight line, and when she's gone, move, you'll see this little thing go up, and just don't get hit by that. And you can go outside of this, it won't kill you instantly, but over time, yeah, it will do damage. But now I'm just gonna, on the next phase, I think it's our last one. I shall free you. That's the only thing you really need to be worried about, that like actually does like good damage, yeah. I'm gonna summon all my Skeletons, not that we needed it.
This guy.
No, this isn't over.
But we get her Watchstone and we can go throw it in wherever. That'll increase the level of the area. But that's how her mechanic basically works. That was Vertania. Alright, Alhesman. This guy is doing lots of chaos, so gotta be careful with him. Make sure you got a decent amount of chaos res when you do fight him. Those bodyguards might not always actually be there. That was actually because of a different modifier. But, so his mechanic, we're probably not going to do very much damage. I expect out to have a lot of chaos resistance, which I recommend for this guy. Because he's not very nice with his chaos damage. I'm just doing it safer. So you'll see these snakes, you can just go around them. But yeah, the chaos damage is pretty nasty. Just wanted to make sure they could at least attack. Okay. Apparently we still didn't spec out to get enough chaos res, and that's normal Kappa. Alright. So if you die to him, it's no big deal. This is actually like a little bit higher tier one, but he just hits really hard. Look at all of my minions already dead. He's my least favorite guy to fight because he just summons a lot, and it's hard to really dodge everything. At least that's how I feel. So go to the center. And all of them are out. You can see, once all of my golems are done, I'm gonna need to play a little bit more scared.
How quick are you?
Okay, I'm down though.
I'm better. Put up a fight. Easy prey. Hold still. I'm better.
Watch out for when he charges up too. Oh, there we go. That time we were okay. You just gotta keep on moving, trying to get too much damage by being greedy and standing still, because when all those like snakes or he hits you, he still hits pretty hard. I honestly thought I was okay with the amount of chaos res. At this moment I had 46, but you probably should be bumping it up a little bit more, just so you have a better chance at defeating him. But this one was a 12, like so it was a little bit more difficult, but that is Alzium. Alright, so once you defeat all of those bosses, you're going to do this multiple times. And each time that you go in and defeat these bosses, things will get more difficult. There will be map modifiers. And now that you're kind of progressing more into like the red maps, there will be modifiers which you just straight up cannot do. And it depends on your build, your playstyle. A lot of people, even in the latest stages of Path of Exile, can't do certain modifiers. And it's okay that you cannot do all of these modifiers. Some of the modifiers that would be impossible to do would be like, if you see the modifiers on the map and you're like, this is too difficult, that's okay. You have a few options. You can either sell the map, you can re-roll it, so it doesn't have some of these modifiers. One excellent thing that you can do is just take a Chaos Orb and then just change the modifier. Now this one's totally fine by me, but for example, if the modifier was that the monsters are hexproof, meaning that we cannot apply the frostbite and elemental weakness. That's a huge downside, but I would still be able to kind of do the map. It's just I would lose out on a massive amount of damage. Now, there are also other mods like increased monster life. That's totally fine. There are mods, for example, like reflect elemental damage. That's totally fine for us. That actually doesn't affect us at all because we have Bastion of Elements, which makes it so we cannot take reflected elemental damage. If there are things where we are cursed, specifically with vulnerability, I will not do those maps. The reason why is, one, we're going to die. Losing XP sucks. They can also be too difficult to the point where we cannot actually complete them because you only have so many portals to go in. One map modifier that a lot of players can't do is that we cannot regenerate like life mana, and that would make it so I wouldn't be able to cast my abilities after I run out of mana. That's it. Like, there's no mana regeneration. Certain other builds, that might not affect them at all because their skills will cost 0 mana because they've spec'd it out to do that. Now, you don't always have to be not doing certain map modifiers forever. You can eventually get to the point where you can do maps that, you know, you're cursed with a certain downside. Like, for example, let me actually chisel this, and this is another like bonus tip over here. If I'm doing a map and I want to like make it like more juicy, as in like it has more rewards, we can take these chisels and it's going to improve the quality of the map. So you'll see over here, this is just like a blank white map where this one is yellow. If I put this one in over here, you'll see that I get quality +1. If I put this one over in a white one, it's going to give me +5. And this goes all the way up to 20%, so we get 20% more quantity over here with the quality being 20%. So kind of the mindset that I'm trying to put you into is you can start off the map being white, you then put up the quality. I would only really start chiseling it towards the red maps, but you can do it to any of the maps. But I would recommend, unless you have a lot of these, because it's going to cost you, you know, that's another form of currency. And then what we'll do is we can alch it, and this one over here, I got cursed with an enfeeble. I'd say I really don't like that. We have less effect on curses. I'm not really a fan of the less on curses, but like this map, could I do it? Yes. Enfeeble is also another curse that would be like a downside. I'm not curse immune. You can technically get your character curse immune, but we'll talk more about that later. But let's say, yeah, I'm like, I don't want to do this one. I throw the Chaos Orb in there, I modify it, and now, let's see, we have more magic monsters. That's good. Monster movement speed, attack speed, cast speed, so that makes it a little bit dangerous. The reflect physical, we don't even need to worry about that. That's awesome, because that's a modifier that's going to make the map a little bit like theoretically harder, but it doesn't really affect us in any negative way at all. And then they deal extra physical as cold. Now, some people will not do like when they do extra damage as whatever element, right? But since we are playing Elementalist, and this is one benefit you have an extra shield that's about, at least at this point, you'll be at least like 2,000, but towards the end, you'll get like 2,500 to maybe even 3,000 with this Primal Aegis. This extra, that's like an extra, like almost half of an average person's HP. Average people have about 5,000 life-ish, 5,000 to 6,000 is about average in Path of Exile once you start getting towards the end game. But on top of this, you will have like that ability to absorb it, so that modifier doesn't hurt us as much as, let's say, a person that doesn't have this. Basically any other class in the game, unless you run a special shield that gives you Aegis. But for the most part, yeah, that's just trying to get you guys in the mindset that you don't have to do every map. You can re-roll them. Although if you do re-roll them, keep in mind that it will cost you money to re-roll. Sometimes it's better just to sell the map, and you know, I already showed you guys how to sell, but just to go over it real quick, let's say, for example, I wanted to sell this. Let's say I go negotiable price. let's put like 3 chaos orb. I'd list it, bam, someone could buy it. Again, you would have to have a premium stash tab, or you can go to the trade channel and just be like this guy over here and just be like trade. You can go to trade, and then you hold Control Alt, click on the item, and then that way when you type it in the chat, you can say selling for 3 chaos orbs, or whatever the price you want. Generally, people don't really use the trade chat, I'm going to be honest. People just use like the actual trade function in the game where you list it. It just makes things much easier. You don't have to sit there spamming and say, hey, want to sell this, want to buy this. It makes it easier if you use the trade websites, but I'm just going to give you guys all the tools. But anyways, that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for pretty much this part. Next part, we'll focus in on other things. We're going to talk about getting more of these. I know that some of these can be kind of out of order. It's just there's so much knowledge with PoE that it's hard to like condense it all into like, okay, after you beat the maps, or you get to the maps, what's the next step? Because they're just like, there's so many options, and you kind of do all of them at once. But again, this is just the way Path of Exile is. There's so much to this. But basically, to do this, you'd actually Google capture terror of the infinite drifts. I'll show this eventually, but for those guys that do want, I'm going to quickly, briefly mention it. You would type in capture whatever. It's going to require you to put in a vessel in here and the map, and then you hit activate, and it's going to make it so at the very end you go back in here, you take the vessel, you take it to Sin, and you get whatever bonus that you want. And you have to do this for every single character that you do play, which is kind of unfortunate. I wish it was like global, like it was account based, kind of like how if you do the Trial of Ascendancies, that's account based. Once I do the trials, I still have to do the lab, but I don't have to do the Trials of Ascendancy again. That's something that you will do. And I think did we do any on this one? Okay, this one, my face is blocking it, but like I did get this one that has reduced curse effect on us. But I'll show you guys how to do this later online. It's how to make your character a little bit more tanky in one department. Like, for example, this gives us extra chaos resistance against damage over time, which can be pretty valuable. This one makes it so we can avoid ailments from critical strikes. That'd be like basically freezing is the one that we actually need to care about. But we'll work on this a little bit more. But in terms of the tree, this is kind of what I've spec'd into right now. Keep in mind, again, I've mentioned it several times, but I gotta mention it again. Don't feel like you have to copy this exactly, but this is just, you know, what I've done. In fact, we can get this all in like basically one screen right here. Perfect. But Path of Exile is all about a learning process, so if any of this is too hard, you're confused on anything, if you want to continue running Sniper's Mark, I've dropped this. I'm just showing you guys all the options here because I'm lazy. Honestly, is it still good? Yeah, but the thing is that I've also swapped out my amulets, special little enchantment. Instead of getting that extra curse, we're getting extra endurance charge. So again, it's just kind of up to you and what you want to do with your character. But anyways, I'll catch you guys in the next one, so don't make this video longer than necessary. Drop a like on your way out, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.